Hi, everybody. Just wanted to put together a really quick little PowerPoint to give you some direction now that you've got the first research essays back. One of the things that I often have students do if I'm on campus, obviously, is come to me and kind of say, why did I get this grade or why is this thing marked? One thing I will tell you is always a good idea for students to do is that when you do get an essay back, whether it's in my class or anybody's class, take a look at it and kind of walk yourself through the essay. That will give you then some really specific questions to ask about the essay itself. So we'll get into it. What you want to do is review the essay along with things like the criteria. So the criteria for this essay, of course, was an argument. If what you did was really just kind of give me a lot of facts, like if you told me that many students use technology and then you told me how they use that technology, that's not really an argument. It's probably a good topic and it's probably something that you had some examples for, but it's really not arguing something. If I wanted to argue that online learning and online technology is exceptionally difficult for some students and that needs to be addressed, then I'm in a much more specific direction. If you're looking at your essay and you realize you've just listed reasons for a result, so why can't students pay attention when they're working online and you go, well, reason one is this, and reason two is this, and reason three is this, that's not an argument. It's simply a cause and effect essay. And while it's okay to use cause and effect within an argument, you instead want to look at arguing what should we do to keep students who are online more on point with their class information. And then the last one, if the topic doesn't meet the criteria of technology and education at all, then obviously that argument isn't going to work for this assignment. And I did notice that in a few of the essays, so always make sure that you're very clear on exactly what the criteria is, and look at your essay, make sure that you met that criteria. Also, of course, in any research essay, check the research. So look at your format for things like quotes, paraphrases, summaries. Are they in quotation marks if they need to be in quotation marks? Have you cited those sources with in-text citation? And that's where I did see a lot of errors in the first essays, in the sense that maybe you gave the reader a quote, maybe you just gave them a statistic that you were paraphrasing, but there's no citation there. There's nothing in the parentheses telling me, hey, look on the works cited page for Joe Smith's article. And then, of course, the works cited citations, are those correct as well and in the correct page format? I will throw on there, alphabetize your works cited pages, because, wow, I think over half of the essays did not have alphabetized works cited pages. And if you use a long quote, use it very, very sparingly in a short essay. I know 4 to 5 pages doesn't seem short, but it is. So if you have a quote that goes over 4 typed lines, technically it's a long quote. You can look at OWL at Purdue and they'll show you how to do that, but you really want to avoid that unless you're writing an extensive essay. Also, if I used information that's not from the approved sources, well, then that can be a problem. So if your sources came from the ones that I provided, so things like the textbook, the WESH videos, the article about the athlete from ESPN, those are fine. If your information came from the Renlick College library, so SIRS, EBSCOhost, any of those databases, that's good. If you have things, obviously, that are your own experience, those are also okay. But if you just started pulling in information that came from other sources outside of that, that can be a problem. And a lot of the essays I just kept writing on there, how can I add more specific examples? Because there was a point being made and there was an argument there, but I needed more information as a reader. So that means if you need to go out and do more research to find more examples, do that. The four sources was simply a minimum. You could use more if you wanted to. And if the articles that you had really didn't give you enough specific information, that's where you want to go out and start looking in other places. Because I guarantee you, for example, the girl in the ESPN article is not the only person who has had that horrible thing happen where they seem to be fine on social media, but in reality they're not. So what you can do is go look for articles that talk about other people that have been through this experience. So also think about if you give me like a really broad idea, like online learning can be good for some teenagers. They can be independent and thrive online, but some teenagers are having trouble in classes because they can't pay attention. Okay, so what I need as a reader, give me some examples, stories of students who do struggle with those sorts of things. Because if I only read this paragraph, then I'm going to start putting in my own examples. And you don't want me to do that as a reader because then your point won't be clear. So check that as well. Look at whether you proofread closely. There's a PowerPoint called Common Mistakes and Tips for English 1102. It's in the week 5 module. After reading through the essays, I noticed that probably not many people looked at it. So it gives you information, very specific information on things like the MLA formatting, things like your tone of voice, use of second person you, which you don't want to do, the problem with statements like I believe, I feel, I think, how to avoid obvious statements. Probably the biggest problem I saw as far as the proofreading issue, many of you over and over would put things in like, in this essay I will write about, or this is the point I want to end on. Don't call attention to the fact that it's an essay. Just say what you need to say. So check that PowerPoint. It's got a lot more things than those, and it will explain those in better detail. One other thing I noticed in particular to research is that there were quite a few of you who gave me information about an author when you were quoting or paraphrasing, but I don't know who that person is, and nobody reading is going to know who that person is. So if you wrote, according to Carolyn Lochner, 1/3 of students have depression, well, who the heck is she? I don't know. So if it's important that the reader know who this person is, because is she a mom? Is she an education expert? Is she a psychiatrist? Who the heck is she and why should I listen to her? That's why you want to make sure that you do give that recognition. So according to Carolyn Lochner, a school psychologist, 1/3 of students have depression. Well, okay, then I know she's got some credentials. And obviously, if it's somebody we'll recognize, like if it's, the president's name or something like that, that's okay. But when you just throw out some random person's name, your reader's probably not going to know who they are if you didn't know who they are. And then also, just a quick reminder, one of the things as you look through that student essay, they point out that you want to connect quotations to your own text. So a hanging quote is a dangerous thing because then as a reader, I have to connect the dots, and don't make your reader do that. So a hanging quote would be something like this: there are many reasons that students don't perform well on tests. And then here's this quote: the idea that students should be able to memorize and regurgitate information on a weekly basis is foolish. And then back to my text: most students fail tests in science and math classes. And the problem is, here's this idea I've thrown in I can see that it's in quotations, which means that as a reader, I look at it and go, well, does the author of this paper think this? Or did they just like that quote and they threw it in? I have no idea. So what you want to do is synthesize with your own text. So I changed it up here. Many students fail science and math classes because the information is difficult and students cannot memorize and regurgitate information in short periods of time. So I maybe took that part of that quote that I really liked because I liked the language there, but I'm going to synthesize it so that you can see this is my opinion as well. It's not just somebody else's that I randomly threw in my essay. And last but not least, as always, once you've kind of taken a look at everything, once you've gone through that PowerPoint, looked back at the MLA sample essay, all that kind of stuff, ask questions. The more specific the question, the better, because then I can give you specific answers. But if you just go, what did I do wrong? Well, that's really big and open-ended. So take a look at, obviously, what I've marked. Take a look at how you scored within that rubric. Like, did you do well on content, but terrible on MLA? Or maybe you did terrible on MLA and great on content. So you can kind of look at where you might need to really concentrate for the next essay. Oh, and one other thing I'll mention, when I returned these essays, you may find several different options to look for comments. So when you go to your grade book, you'll see the grade and then you'll see all those little icons next to the number. Click on each one of those because on some essays I hand wrote notes. Some of you got like typed notes, so look for those things, and it'll also, of course, show you the rubric as well. So if you need anything, holler at me. If you have questions about, obviously, this graded essay, just yell. If you have questions about the next essay, just yell. So if you need me, you know where to find me.